Hey everybody, this is Tom from Rocket Restorations, and today we got a very special and really fun episode for you. This is one I thought of the other day, and we just have a very unique opportunity to do something that I don't think anyone's ever done before. We're going to review 3 Mopars. So these cars are all Mopars with basically the same suspension. Obviously in 71 there's a big design change, but they're all, basically the same chassis, the B body chassis. And what we're going to do is compare, is it worth it to get the aftermarket parts on these things? So the car on the left is a 1971 Plymouth Roadrunner. This is one my dad just bought down in Reno. Factory rubber bumper car, really cool. If you want to learn way more about this, I did a video a couple days ago on it. Look for it on my channel. I'll go into a little more depth, but this car has a complete Magnum Force front end on it. So K-member, rack and pinion steering, wheel-wood disc brakes, all that fancy stuff that everybody spends a bunch of money on. And I want to see, does it handle any better than the other cars? This has coilovers too, so they've actually eliminated the torsion bars on this car. So this one is a 1969 Plymouth GTX. This is a customer car in the shop here. We've been doing a bunch of work to it. Motor was rebuilt, didn't run very well, and a lot of detail and cosmetic stuff on it. We've made pretty good progress on this one. But the interesting part about this one is so this one's still torsion bars, but it has a Borgeson steering box with all the Borgeson front end parts. So tubular upper control arms, but pretty much everything else is stock, but everything's new on it. Rebuilt front end, everything's really nice on it. And so that's kind of the middle ground. So that's everything. That's kind of middle ground. And then we have a 1969 Dodge Daytona over here. This is just the best example of a stock B-body we have in the shop right now. What do they say in Back to the Future when Marty asked Doc, why a DeLorean is a time machine? Well, might as well do it with some style. So today we're gonna do this with some style. So this one is pretty much completely stock. Torsion bars, it has a stage 2 firm feel steering box in it. So, factory steering box, recirculating ball, but, the upgraded firm feel one. And it has offset upper controller bushings, which if you ever do a front end on Mopar, I highly recommend, unless you're doing a 100% stock build, because you can get way more camber out of it. So this will be kind of an interesting test. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go through in detail on all the steering and all the stuff on these cars. And then we're going to test drive each one of them in order. We're going to start out with the Daytona, with basically the stock suspension, then the 69 GTX with the Borgeson box, tubular control arms, and all that fun stuff. Then we're going to do a 71 Roadrunner with the Magnum Force front end on it. And we're going to see if it's worth the money. So this was done in 2009, and it was $5,500 for all the Magnum Force stuff. I'm sure it is a lot more money than that now. And we're going to see if it's really worth the money or not. So, all right, well, I'm going to do a little background on each car, open up the hood and kind of show you what we're dealing with, and then we'll do some test drives. All right, well, here's the 71 Roadrunner, and I just want to say right now, we are not a Car and Driver or Motor Trend or the Smoking Tire or anything like that. We don't do car reviews, but I just thought this was a unique opportunity to be able to test some cars right here with Mopars, because I know a lot of people are considering doing this stuff, and I just think it's kind of interesting. There's a pretty stock 1971 Roadrunner, other than the front suspension, of course. AC's been added, has the modern Sendo compressor, I can't remember what they call them, with 134 refrigerant. Again, I did a real in-depth video on inspecting this car in Reno that was up yesterday, so I really encourage you to watch that if you want to get more depth on this car. I'm just going to concentrate on the suspension today. So this is what's called the Magnum Force front suspension, and basically what it is it is a tubular K-member. So the stock K-member is all stamped metal. This one's tubular. And then it has rack and pinion steering with power steering on it, and then they put wood disc brakes on it with a modern master cylinder and a wood adjustable prop valve down there, and it also has coilovers. So the torsion bars have been eliminated on this car, so there's still all the torsion bar cross member stuff still in there, but it's been modified. And you see the steering column's also been modified. It has that big joint on there to make all of this work. I'll be honest with you, I am a little biased against these. We've had a few of these cars in the shop and I haven't had much luck with them, but I'm gonna try to keep an open mind today when we go through this stuff. My biggest complaint with this front suspension is, so it uses coilovers and they go to the front shock towers. So on a stock Mopar, obviously it's a torsion bar car. So there's a bar that goes from the middle of the car to the lower control arm. That's your front suspension. So that bar, basically, you put tension on it and it twists, and that's your front suspension on a Mopar. It's a very good design. The biggest disadvantage to it is packaging. So like trying to get exhaust past the torsion bars can be very difficult. You know, starters in, you know, you got to work around those things. Coilovers are a much more compact package. They tend to be a little bit better with that. You know, that's why most, you know, modern front wheel drive cars use strut rods, struts on the front, because it's just a very compact, easy package to use. My problem with the Magnum Force setup is all of the front suspension is now on the inner fenders, basically. So these cars are not designed to take a load there. So these are just stamped steel that are welded on. That's all there is. Some of the higher end tubular upper control arms in the front end suspension pieces actually have a stub that goes underneath the shock tower area on the inner fender, and then it rides on that. So then all the loads on the K-member and the structure rather than on the structure of the car. So I'm just gonna say right now, this is not very well engineered, and I do not like this setup that much. I guess we're gonna see when we test drive to see if it's better or not, see if it rides, see if it's worth it. But there's some significant engineering challenges with this that I don't agree with. Some people will probably disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I don't know if Magnum's gonna see this or not. And I've also, you know, we helped a customer install one of these, you know, about 10 years ago, and the fitment was not great on it either. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. So it's a rack and pinion steering with a tubular upper control arm, tubular upper control arms, coilovers, rack and pinion, all that fun stuff. So, all right, now we'll go to the GTX. All right, so this car is a 1969 Plymouth GTX, original GTX, air grabber car. It's got some pretty cool options on it. We've been doing just a bunch of little stuff to this. It didn't run very well. The engine was rebuilt. Unfortunately, I believe the guy passed away when he was rebuilding the motor, and then it got put together, and it just, nothing quite ran right on this car. So Jamie did his magic on it. Now it's running a lot better now. It's got just the, you know, the standard Edelbrock with the electric choke, running pretty good now. We just did valve covers. Fortunately, the paint we have didn't match the engine very well. We may have to do some spray on the upper engine to match that. That's the unfortunate part. When the paint you have is the wrong color, it can kind of be a problem. So we're probably gonna have to fix that. It still needs blackout. That's one of my biggest pet peeves on a Mopar. All these are supposed to be blacked out. The Roadrunner has the same thing going on, so we're definitely gonna fix that before it leaves. Again, it's just annoying. Huh. Where that came from. That's not great. There's just a broken screw hanging out in there. Okay, we'll go back to that. Okay, so this car, front suspension. So this is a torsion bar car. So stock suspension. It's kind of hard to see them. Let's see if we can see it on this side. Yeah, so you can kind of see it down there, that big bar that goes through there. There's a bar on either side. It goes in the control arm, and then there's a nut below the lower control arm that goes up and down to adjust the ride height. It's a pretty good setup from the factory. There's a reason why it's not used now, but it's really a pretty good setup. And then on this one, they use tubular upper control arms. And I believe this is all Borgeson stuff that they used. You can kind of see it up there. So tubular upper control arms. It's pretty much just a stock sway bar. No real upgrades there. And then they have what's called the Borgeson box. So, and as far as I can tell, from what I've been told, that these are basically like a 90s Grand Cherokee steering box or something similar to that they basically modified to work on a Mopar. And they're sold for a bunch of other cars like Fords and Chevys and stuff. You do have to modify the steering column to make this work. You have to cut it off, put the adapter on. We've done a couple of these. It's really not a bad setup. We've had pretty good luck with these. A couple advantages to this: you get a little more modern road feel. It's much more compact. So the stock steering box, the power steering box, weighs like 50 pounds with all the power steering. This is a much lighter box. It's also much smaller. If you have headers, a lot of times the stock power steering box really interferes with the headers. It makes it real hard to install that stuff. So that's just that's an advantage of that. You know, this has upper control arms. What's interesting is it actually doesn't have It has a fully manual adjusted upper control arms. So there's actually so normally on a Mopar, to align them, you have these washers down here, and then they're eccentric washers, so you turn them and then the control arm goes in and out to align the car. This one actually has fully adjustable upper control arms, and they're that's how you basically align the car. And saying that, when Jamie aligned this thing, because it came in, the alignment was really bad, and they'd done the whole front suspension, but they didn't do lower control arm bushings, so we had to go back and redo all that stuff. Just because you want everything new when you do it. When Jamie aligned it, he actually has the arms maxed out. I thought kind of the point of the adjustable upper control arms was to have a little bit more adjustment, but to get the camber where he wanted it, he had to go all the way out on it, like all the way, which you think there'd be a little more adjustment on that. So I don't know if this is a manual steering car or not, but this is the Borgeson power steering kit. So it's a more modern Saginaw pump. They started using the Saginaw pumps on Mopar around 1969, and they're kind of slowly phased in. Like 340 cars still use the Chrysler pump, Hemi cars still use the Chrysler pump, but most everything was using the Saginaw by 73, 74. And I know I'm putting this on video. This is probably the only time you'll ever hear me say this. The the Saginaw pump is a GM pump. It's better than the Mopar pumps. Mopar had the TRW and the Federal, and all they do is leak. They don't really work very well. I've never really had any fail on me before, but they just don't work that well. They just don't. And the Saginaw pumps are easy to find parts for. They're cheap. I mean, I guess that's the advantage of being a GM pump. Everything GM's cheaper, everything GM is easier, and because they made a freaking million of them, but that's, when you have an Impala or Chevelle or something, it's not even a challenge to restore those things, because pretty much everything's available in a catalog. So I just noticed, I don't know if there's a back bracket to this, which is kind of weird. You think there'd be something bracing that from the back. I mean, that is a pretty beefy front cover, but that's the only bracket holding that thing on. Interesting. I wonder if it's missing a piece or not. Everything seems pretty solid though when I touch it. Another thing we put on here, it had a straight fan without a fan shroud. Put a fan shroud on it, had the original radiator. There's a lot of the detail stuff that we try to fix. They had a dual field alternator on it when this is original single field alternator. So in 70 they went to a dual field alternator, so there was 2 fields on the back of the alternator, and they tended to charge a little bit better, a little faster, I guess. And they went to like a pancake solid state voltage regulator. So that big black box right there, that's the points type single field. So this thing wasn't charging right, and that was one reason. It also didn't have a bunch of the ground cables. So there's a ground cable on the back of the motor right there that it was missing, and then the ground cable on the front was in the wrong spot. It was to the power steering pump right here, and it wasn't grounding right. So we're having some charging issues on this. So all right, well, so this is kind of the middle version, I guess. So the adjustable tubular upper control arms, the Borgeson box, and the power steering pump. So this is kind of our middle one. So we've got super modified, kind of modified, and now we're gonna go to the stock car, a 1969 Dodge Daytona. All right, now we got completely stock. So we've got, this is obviously factory torsion bar. It has a firm field power steering box in there. You can see how much bigger that box is than the GTX one. It's also cast iron instead of aluminum, so it weighs a lot more. Stock steering column with a coupler, factory torsion bars. I said the only mods we made on this car was the offset upper control arms, which you can get more camber out of it with those, which you really need that, because the stock suspension and alignment specs on this were based on bias ply tires, and with the radials they can really stand a lot more camber, and they really handle much better. A lot of that just feel on the road, wander back and forth, they just feel way better. These are the radial redline that look like polyglass tires, which look pretty cool. So they kind of have that squared look, but they're still radials. Our customer, super nice dude, we work on a lot of his cars, but he really drives this stuff. In fact, he's driving this thing to Hot August Nights this weekend. So we gotta finish this thing up. We had he bought this thing a couple years ago, and we did basically it came in as a running car. It didn't have a numbers matching motor, didn't have the numbers matching tranny. So we basically did a front to back mechanical restoration on this and made everything work. So we found a correct day coded 69440 HP, put that all together, found a correct carb. So it's a fairly original restoration. Basically everything we've done on here is like, You know, if there's any mods, it's mostly stuff for drivability. You know, it has electronic ignition, has some of that kind of stuff. We have our famous ECU bracket on the back there to mount it on the back, just for more drivability sake. So this is a really nice car. But again, completely stock suspension. It has, I believe we put a stage 2 firm feel steering box. If you know the guys down at Firm Feel, they're great. They're down in Vancouver, Washington. They specialize in front end Mopar stuff. They do a stage 1, 2, or 3 box. 3 is like full on race, 2 somewhere in the middle. 1's basically a stock rebuild. We always like it a little more firm because they go down the road a little bit better. So yeah, pretty much stock Daytona here. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to start with the stock car, then we'll go to the middle car, and then we'll go to the super modified car, and we'll kind of like do a comparison back and forth and see what we can do. All right, here we go. Driving a Daytona period is just a really special experience because it's just, these are such special cars. Yeah, if you're an introvert, don't drive a Daytona. The other thing about Daytonas that are kind of underrated is the rear like blind spots are huge on this car because you got the flying buttresses that the windows filled in, and then you got a wing that blocks it too. So like if you're like looking over your shoulder to see if anybody's next to you, you basically can't see anything. This car did not have a passenger mirror, and again, the owner of this car really likes driving his cars. We put a passenger mirror on. I think that's not something that bothers us in a restoration like this. You know, if we're doing like OE 100% original, you know, like Concours judging, then you worry about it. But on this car, it's just a safety thing. Ooh, the clock even works. I don't know why we didn't put a tack in this. It's not an original tack car, but you know, usually it's a nice option. Oh, I didn't like that. I don't know what that was. Starter was unhappy. All right. Away we go. There we go. Got a nice little back road over here. Fortunately, my usual picture spot, they're doing construction over there. And the way they do construction around here is they basically tar the road, throw gravel down, and throw tar down again. And that's not an option to drive over that in a Daytona. This is a factory disc brake car, has the stock 4-piston calipers on it, and it actually it stops pretty good. You know, everything's rebuilt on it. The 4-piston calipers kind of have a bad rep, and I think most of it is just they cost so much money to restore those things. Like the last set of calipers we had to do was like $800, and I don't know, I guess we need to find a cheaper place to do it or try to do it ourselves, but it's really hard to find the kits. This thing drives down the road real nice. You know, has the stock, basically stock suspension, stock torch bars. Rider, walk her down the road. You know, you kind of go down the road. This road's got a little bit of a crown, but it drives real nice. I mean, the other thing too, when you're talking about front suspension setups and everything, like alignment makes a huge difference. This one was aligned by a previous guy who did a really good job, and then the GTX was aligned by Jamie. We're doing that all in-house now. The Roadrunner, I don't know who aligned that. Obviously the car just got home. We just got it last week, so I can't really tell you for sure. Yeah, it's a fairly stock build, but it was pretty good. You know, 375 horse, stock cam, stock pistons. You know, we didn't really want to mess around with this one too much. Customer likes to drive it, and it's a Daytona, not a race car. Well, I guess it kind of is a race car, isn't it? But it's not really what it's meant for. So this is kind of our baseline. I mean, the thing is, it's a pretty nice road right here, so it's kind of like there's not a ton of bumps, but you know, it's got a little bit of shake to it. You know, but it really does pretty good. You know, it's the stock heavy duty torsion bars. It has the factory sway bar on it, which is the heaviest duty one. And then we got, I think we put Bilstein shocks on this. So we usually go with KYB gas adjustable or the Bilsteins. The Bilsteins tend to ride a little bit better and make a big difference in handling. And again, our customer likes to drive his stuff, so we put the Bilsteins on this, and it really helps the drivability. It tends to really like that. Yeah, I mean, as far as handling is concerned, we just run around that 10-mile-an-hour corner. Everything feels really tight in the front end. Everything feels really good. You know, I think a lot of people, when they upgrade to these systems, you know, they have a car that has an old worn-out front end and a worn-out steering box, and yeah, they're not going to handle very well that well. You know, everything's worn out and nothing really works that well. Once you get everything new, like stock, they really go pretty good, especially when you get those offset over control arm bushings to help with the camber. That's 50. I guess there is a little bit of steering correction, but this road is a little bit rough. It's kind of a secondary road, so I am having to do a bit of correction here. So we'll see how the Borgeson box does. But then again, I can just kind of leave it, and it's going pretty straight down the road right now. I'm not even touching the steering wheel. Look, Ma, no hands. All right, here's a good corner up here. Good 30-mile-an-hour corner. We'll do this about 45 and see how she does. This one's a little bit limited by tires too. You know, we have the bias ply radials. They aren't the best tires for handling. You know, obviously tires makes a big deal too. Yeah, I just did a 30-mile-an-hour corner at 50. Did great. You know, a little bit of body lean, but not too much. I mean, you want a little bit of body roll. You don't want it to be completely flat. So, yeah, ride feels pretty good. All right, turn around here up in the corner. All right, flip a UE here. Don't want to end up in the ditch. Can't quite make that. I don't want to hit the nose cone on a stop sign, so I don't think my customer would be too happy about that. There's some monster ditches here. Looks like they just cleaned them out. Yeah, just remember a bridge over there, and you know, no harsh impacts when you hit the expansion joints. It's really pretty good. Steering effort is, you know, there's a little bit of effort to it, but you want some feel. You know, like most modern cars now have electric power steering, and they just have zero feel to them. This all feels mechanical, like everything's connected, and feels really good. This is kind of a new spot we just discovered. They just built this parking lot actually, and the town we're in here is actually known for their herd of elk. They actually go through my yard a couple times a year usually. I got my big 13-acre field out back. But usually you can see them out here, but it looks like they're somewhere else right now. But usually the elk, it's a nature preserve out here, so they're usually like, you know, eating out in the field out here. But they actually built this parking lot for it. It's kind of cool. Yeah. So again, here's kind of an example of a stock setup. This is kind of our baseline. This is kind of, you know, best case scenario, what a you know, stock suspension Mopar feels like going down the road. It feels pretty good. You know, it's not a, you know, it's not a European sports car or anything, but like body roll's pretty minimum. It rides pretty good. You know, the steering feels pretty good. You know, you put stock parts on there and everything goes pretty good. So, all right, let's head back and then we're gonna try the GTX next. Yeah, pretty minimal effort with the steering, especially when you're moving. Stand still. There we go. Just wanted to show you that. I lied. Now we're gonna get the GTX. All right, now we go to the 69 GTX, and this is the kind of the medium one. So it's got a Borgeson box with the two blow-up control arms, fully adjustable. We'll see how it goes. As far as handling goes and ride, you know, this, well, as far as ride goes, it should be about the same because it's still a torsion bar car. I'm pretty sure it's stock bars in there. They haven't been upgraded. Although doing upgraded bars on one of these helps. They ride a little bit worse, but they handle a little bit better. And but this one's stock bars with the box. So the ride should be about the same, but we'll see how much the steering feels and how it goes down the road. Also, just notice the different dash here. So the Charger has what's called a rally dash with the two big pods and then the little gauges. This is called, I just call it a bar dash. But this one is unique because the GTX only has a 150 speedometer on it. And this has a tach too. It's a reproduction. I don't think the car came with it originally, but reproduction. And then AM radio. Radios are the same, rally dash, non-rally dash, and then the heater controls are the same too. Wiper switch down there, headlights, all that fun stuff. It actually says GTX in the glove box, which is kind of neat. All right, let's see how this one fires up. This one had some sketchy brakes on it too. So they put, I believe, it's an aftermarket disc brake kit. I believe it's SSBC, stainless steel brakes. Those kits are okay. The problem is they put this aftermarket booster on and it just wasn't set up right. Like the brake switch was in the wrong spot and you had a bunch of play with it and it just didn't work. You had like play going down and play going up on the brake pedal, and that's no good. So we got a stock Bendix booster for it and fixed all that. Gas gauge says 0. Hoping this is the typical repo sending unit where it's only a quarter tank. So I'm pretty sure I put gas in this like 3 times since it's been here. I really need to take it to town and put some ethanol free in it. So, all right, we just got a gravel driveway, so we take it nice and slow here. Get out to the main road. Our neighbors just hayed their field. Lots of hay bales. So we're gonna take all 3 cars on the same loop, just so it's a fair contest. This one rides about the same. The steering definitely feels lighter than the stock one, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing or not. It feels nice and tight, but it's definitely less effort than the Daytona was. All right, take this corner down here. Tight corner. It's kind of a swamp down here. It usually floods in the winter. Don't really know much about the build on the motor. Somebody else did it, but I know it doesn't have a lot of miles on it, so I don't want to go too hard on it. it's drifting a little bit right. But the thing is, like, it's really hard to tune that because all the roads are crowned. You know, they're crowned so water goes off to the sides. So it's kind of hard to judge. The Daytona definitely went a little bit straighter than this one, but that's probably more an alignment issue than anything. Definitely has a lighter feel to it, and it still feels pretty firm. All right, bridge joints here. Feels pretty good, but again, they do a pretty good job around here. There's not like huge expansion joints. Nice part about living in the Pacific Northwest is we don't have the temperature extremes in the Midwest, so our expansion joints aren't quite as bad. Brakes feel good on it. And again, I'm just kind of like, yes, I know the Plymouth is backwards. It's on our to-do list. It's just a little bit. Yeah, it's a big ditch there. You got to be a little bit careful. So I'm just going to kind of go straight here. See what it does. Yeah, it's still pulling a little bit right. Don't tell Jamie. He gets really mad when I ask him to realign a car, because realigning a car is kind of a pain in the butt. Yeah, it's definitely pulling right a little bit. But again, that's an alignment issue. That's not part of the box. But I mean, I would definitely say that the steering feel definitely feels a bit lighter than the Daytona. But the Daytona does have that firm feel box on it. You know, this is just a stock Borgeson box. And I'm having to do a lot of corrections to kind of keep it. But again, this is a little bit of a bumpy road, so it's kind of hard to say. Kind of interesting. It's definitely dartier than the Daytona was, whatever that's worth. I mean, I really should get these things out in the freeway and really do it, but I figure on a bumpy back road like this, it's probably a pretty good stay. But it feels like there's a little bit more bump steer with this. If you guys don't know what bump steer is, that's when you hit a bump and the suspension moves, it'll change the alignment, because the alignment kind of changes as you go up and down in the suspension travel. So when you have bump steer, basically when you hit a bump, it tries to like turn one way or another. It definitely feels like this has a little bit more than that in the Daytona for whatever reason. All right, here's that 30-mile-an-hour corner. So I'll take this about the same speed as the Daytona. I took about 45 in the Daytona. Do the same thing in the GTX. Let's see how she does. Yeah, feels good. Goes right through it. Stays right where I want it to go. Steering felt really good through there. Bear crossing. Good to know. All right, let's see how she turns around. Oop, front tire rubs. That's better than the Daytona, but I kind of chickened out in the Daytona because of the nose. I really didn't want to hit that stop sign with a nose cone. That would have made for not a very good day. But yeah, good turning radius. Everything feels really good there. It's definitely less feel. It's definitely easier to turn. I don't want to say less feel. That's not the right word for it, but it definitely turns easier than the Daytona did. Actually feels like the heater's on a little bit. I gotta look into that. There shouldn't be warm air coming from that. Everything's off right now. The temperature's off. You're gonna have to look at that. Add that to the list. It's kind of hard to explain, but it just feels a little bit darty going down the road, and I don't know why. That may be more in the front alignment than the box, but so it's definitely lighter feel than the Daytona, but it just feels darty. See that? Daytona just felt like it was easier to keep going straight down the road. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the ride seems about the same as the Daytona, which is, you know, that's what it should be. It's a torsion bar car, The steering definitely feels lighter than the Daytona. It's easier to steer, but it still feels very steady. I would definitely say that the steering's an upgrade over the Daytona, but it does feel more darty, and I'm not really sure why. That may be in the front end alignment a little bit, but everything feels really good on this thing. Like the alignment feels pretty good. I mean, it goes slightly to the right, but again, we kind of have to dial that in because of the crown roads. So it kind of goes back and forth when you do that. So, all right, well, let's go get the Roadrunner. The 7B boys always have a good dash. They have a stock bar dash like the GTX, but this is the rally gauges. And there's a couple different versions. You get it with a tack, without a tack. This is one with the tack, and then when they had the tack, they stacked all four of the, you know, what's going on with the car gauges there. They put an AM/FM in here, not original, but that's still cool. Gotta love the beep beep. Yep, it's got the beep beep horn. Gotta have that other Roadrunner. The air garbage switch is actually down there on here. And then it's got this aftermarket AC system, which I don't even know how you're supposed to run that. I got to figure that out. Of course, the dealer didn't know. So it has all these vents here, and there's all the controls are right here, but I thought there's supposed to be a separate control for them. It's blowing hot anyway, so I don't think it works, but I'm going to have to do some more research on that. Oh, fires right up. Good old Edelbrock electric choke. Very reliable. Gotta have the air grabber up. I mean, just have to, right? I'm not sure how much the phone picks up, but can you hear the whine? The power steering system just whines all the time on this, which is a little bit annoying. I checked the fluid, everything's nice and full on it, so it's not low, but it really sounds like it's low on fluid when you're driving it. All right, again, we're doing the same loop as the other two cars. I put the air grabber down just so you can see a little bit better, although that pretty much is the coolest part about the car. Nice little corner here, feels real good. Steering feels very light but firm, which is good. Again, it makes a lot of noise as you go through the system. Motor feels pretty good. Kickdown's not really working. Set the alignment's a little bit off. Keep it straight on a little bit left. Keep in mind, the system was put in 15 years ago too, so you know, the parts may have worn out a little bit, although I really don't think this thing has that many miles. Boy, it's moves around a lot. It really doesn't feel like it rides as well as the Borgeson car, I'll be honest with you. Brakes are Willwoods. You know, they feel pretty confident. Although they tend to squeal at low speeds. Alright, here's the bridge expansion joints. Yeah, it feels pretty good there. It's amazing how much noise this front end makes. You hear a bunch of clunks and bumps coming up from up there. Not sure what that's going for. I don't know if something's loose or... Yeah, brakes are good. I think this is kind of the lighter duty Willwood setup. They kind of have the brands. Everybody wants that, but like, I don't know. I just don't get the Willwood thing. I mean, it seems like it rides okay. Honestly, I don't really feel that much of a difference over the Borgeson car. Okay, why is somebody dead in the middle of the road? That's really weird. Sorry for the jump cut there. This nice lady here, her garbage got knocked over and she was having a hard time picking it up, so I had to help her out. What's weird is like this thing makes all sorts of noises in reverse. There's like little clunks and bangs and... Hear that? It's a big clunk. Seems like it's only in reverse for whatever reason. I don't know why. I think that's her driveway. Brakes squeal too, hear that? It does go down the road pretty nice. I really don't notice much ride quality difference in the coilovers versus the torsion bars. A lot of just squeaking and I don't know, it kind of sounds like poly bushings on the front end going up and down. Alright, let's do this turn at 45, just like we did with the Daytona. Although I wonder if the speedo's off, because this feels faster than the other cars. Yeah, holds it pretty good. That's not bad. Oh, here comes the garbage truck. Alright, here's where I do my U-turn here. Clunk bang. There's a car coming, I gotta make this quick. Wow, the turning radius is not as good on this one. That's interesting. The turning radius is definitely a lot less on this than on the stock cars. GTX I did, no problem. I'm pretty sure I could have done it with the Daytona, although I chickened out with the nose and the stop sign. This one definitely couldn't make that turn. So the turning radius is definitely worse with this front end setup for whatever reason. I'm sure the bump stops are probably just at a different spot, but yeah, that's not great. It's weird, there's like a rattling noise when I turn. I mean, it sounds like it's kind of like kind of a shh out of the front rack and pinion setup, I guess. I'm not really sure what else it could be. Great, now I'm following a garbage truck. Alright, past the garbage trucker though. He decided to be halfway down the road for some reason. I don't know why. awesome spot up here. I don't know if you guys can hear that popping in the video. It's weird. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I don't know if that's the brakes or what, because it's doing it when I turn and when I brake. Man, this car really does look pretty good. I was a little skeptical about this when my dad bought it, but it's really grown on me. The rubber bumpers, we did a 71 GTX a few years ago where we did the painted bumper thing on it, and it just looked really, really good. So I don't really know what to tell you about the front suspension on this. Like, it makes a bunch of noise and hisses. I really don't see that much of a ride quality difference between the torsion bar cars and this. They all feel about the same. I mean, maybe if you got it out on a road course, it would feel different, but like, when are you gonna go on a road course in one of these things? Like, I just don't see that happening. The steering, you know, I'd probably say it does feel a little bit better. I mean, it's rack and pinion. It has a nice light feel to it, but still feels fairly firm. It felt a little bit dartier than the Daytona, but not by much. It's definitely better than the Borgeson box. I don't know, that thing just felt really darty going down the road. This one, I don't know, it's good. Is it 5,500 plus? I'm sure it's way more than that good. I just don't think so. Alright, let's see if I can do a little back and forth in this parking lot to kind of show you what this thing does. I'll hit the curb. I mean, it goes pretty good. Has a little bit of body roll, but I don't know. My dad's about to come over to see this car for the first time, and I want to see if I don't know if it has a sugar grip or not. I forgot to check when I was inspecting it. Let's find out. Looks like the answer is yes. It does have a sugar grip. All right. Well, there you go. Back to back to back. I mean, I'll be honest with you. For as much money as you spend on one of these front ends, I don't see that much difference. I honestly think this one, the steering is a little bit better. It feels nice and light, but firm at the same time. The ride, I don't see any difference. And this thing makes a bunch of noise when you turn. The hissing from the power steering is very annoying. It makes a lot of pops and pings and all that, and squeaks, although I think the squeaks may be more the Willwood stuff. You know what I think about the Willwood stuff. I do not think much of the Willwood stuff. I think for what you pay for it, there's a lot of other kits out there that are in better shape. But yeah, I mean, I will say that this one probably steers a bit better than the other two. I think the feel on the Borgeson box on the GTX is, you know, it's definitely a lighter steering feel than the Daytona. But honestly, this one feels pretty darty going down the road compared to the stock box. And again, that Borgeson box stuff is not cheap. So the Borgeson steering box, so we've done this in a couple cars, and it's definitely an improvement over a worn out box, but I just don't know how much improvement is. They're about $1,200. Keep in mind, you know, doing a stock firm feel box, I think they're $600 a box now doing those. So I mean, like the Borgeson, like it's not that much more. You do have to modify your steering column, you know, change to their power steering box, all their hoses. It's $1,200 for a kit. So I mean, it's twice as much of the firm feel, but it's not like way more. Now the Magnum stuff, that stuff's expensive. As I said, I have a receipt for $5,500. I'm assuming it's way more expensive now. Also, this front end's 15 years old now, so I kind of wonder if some of the components have worn out, because I definitely noticed when you have aftermarket parts like that, they just don't last as long as OEM stuff, whether it's the quality of the parts or I don't even know, but they just don't seem to last that long. So yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, kind of where I started out with this is keep it stock, and I haven't really changed my mind on that. As I said, we have done a couple of these at the shop. It definitely is an improvement, but for the money, I don't know, just go with the firm feel box. I mean, there's a bunch of other companies who rebuild the boxes, Redhead, all those. Like, it just seems to me, stick with stock. That this money is just not worth that much. It just doesn't give you that much improvement. In fact, on this Roadrunner, I've talked to my dad about it, especially with the engineering stuff that we discussed. You know, the fact that the coilovers are on the shock tower without any reinforcement, and we're trying to keep a stock car on this. I think we're going to put this Roadrunner back to stock. So I'm going to start gathering up some parts here. I should have most of the stuff here. Got to find the right key member for it, the sway bar, you know, upper lower control arms. Going to have to find a floor shift steering column for it. But I think we're going to eventually put it back to stock. So, but what we'll do here is we'll gather those parts up. rebuild the front end, do a firm feel steering box for it, and then we'll build it on the ground. It should be a pretty easy swap. We'll just do it on the lift, just drop the whole engine and trans out, lift it up, and then change all that out. And then we should be able to get some money back for the Magnum Force front end too, so that'll save my dad some money. So, well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is something I was, you know, really hoping to do for years. You know, this is kind of a good opportunity where we kind of have the 3 levels of Mopar front suspension and steering here, and it was a really good opportunity to do this. So this is Tom with Rocket Restorations, and I really appreciate everybody watching.